Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy, powered by TrustArc. Here are your hosts, Paul Breitbart, Ralph O'Brien, and Dr. Kay Royal.
Hi, everyone. This is Kay Royal. It seems like we're going to have a different type of a program today because the boys left me all by myself. I guess I could sing all by myself. Okay, we know I'm not a singer, right? So, unexpected question today is going to be full of unexpected questions today. I've decided if I'm by myself, we're going to record privacy, data protection, and cybersecurity law trivia. I don't think there's a lot on cybersecurity law, but hey, we can roll it in there. So my name is Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. Hey, y'all, before we get to the trivia game, we've got a report from Paul Breitbart, who's over at Seoul, or he was over at Seoul, to record this from the Global Privacy Assembly with the regulator. So let's take a little bit of break, listen to Paul, and we will come back to trivia. Hang on.
Hello, Ralph and Kay, and hello, listeners. This is Korea calling. Live from Seoul, I'm reporting on the 47th Global Privacy Assembly. This year, the core topic was artificial intelligence in our daily lives, data and privacy issues. And it is very clear that AI plays a big role in our daily lives, even at a privacy conference. I've seen, while sat in the assembly hall, people using AI for note-taking purposes during the sessions while doing other things, listening and maybe playing on their phone as well. But the AI was diligently taking notes in the background. The organizers also offered live translation during panels with the use of an AI tool, an AI-based tool called Flitzo. So especially during the breakout sessions in the plenary, live interpreters. During the breakout sessions, there was no room to put up boxes in all languages. So they used Flitzo, and there was a big screen only translating from Korean to English and back. I guess AI is not yet ready to do multiple languages at the same time. But it was fascinating to see, and it actually worked with maybe a 15-second delay in getting actually the translation seen. And also during the conference, there were certain vendors who or certain sponsors who had an exhibit booth just outside the conference hall. And some of them also brought photo booths. And one of them, LG, actually allowed you to go into the photo booth, have your picture taken, and then be dressed out in traditional Korean hanbok. So the traditional dress that people wore when Korea was still a kingdom before 1910. Spectacular and with really good results. I've seen quite a few people's pictures, including my own, and it really looks good. That was already part of the AI that was being used just in the conference, but we spoke about a whole lot more. There were two very inspiring keynotes. The first one by Meredith Whittaker, who is the CEO of Signal. And she spoke about the encryption wars that were seemingly won in the late 90s, when the US government accepted that the general public should have the right to confidential communications. I say seemingly because since the fight against encryption and in favor of backdoors has been more needed than ever. Governments demand backdoors for encryption, but only for the good guys, which is them, for the security services to fight terrorism and organized crime and other bad things. And the other war that we are now fighting are against the AI agents and AI being integrated in the operating systems of all our devices, according to Meredith Whittaker, of course. When she explains that, according to her and her team, this will harm the possibility to preserve privacy, since these AI agents run in the core of your devices. And it is magical thinking that we can collect and use all of this data without interfering with encryption and the protection of fundamental rights. Encryption is the technology, the only technology we have to ensure privacy in the digital age, he claims. So vendors of operating systems should let app developers as well as users decide if they want to hand over their data or not, and not make general assumptions or decisions for their users only based on usability and sexy new features. The other interesting keynote for me was from Professor Graham Burnett at Princeton University. He is professor of the history of human attention, and we may think that the ad tech industry is something from the digital age, but he showed actually that this already existed in the first half of the 20th century, with studies tracking eye movement to find out where on a paper advertisement certain information should be placed to make it most effective. He is now working on what he calls human tracking, the continuous drilling, so to say, into us humans by organizations that want our attention. And we all know how it works with our smartphones and other smart devices. They are constantly begging for your attention with push notifications and fancy colors and pop-ups and what have you. And he is looking into that in much more detail together with his colleagues. He also argues that people have a need for sanctuaries where their attention is actually protected, where people can still learn things, can develop themselves, make sure that they are able to become somebody else or become who they want to be, where they can learn. So he talks about places like schools, like museums, libraries. There is a book coming up called Attensity that will appear early next year, where he will talk more together with a lot of colleagues about these sanctuaries and what is required and how that would relate also to the protection of personal data and to our privacy. I probably do not do this talk not really justice right now, but I have agreed with him that we will invite him to the podcast closer to the book release so that he can explain it in his own words. So what else was discussed in Seoul? There was a panel on synthetic data, or there were 3 speeches under the verge of a panel that spoke about synthetic data. And it was a topic that I wanted to learn more about. I still want to learn more about it, but this was a good start, I thought. Synthetic data, as you may be fully aware, is a privacy-enhancing technology, and as such, it's a good thing. But a lot depends on how the data is created. Is the original data set only used as inspiration on what data elements to include and what their makeup is? For example, for a postal code or a zip code, what is the sequence of numbers and letters that should be used? Is there a name? Is there a date of birth? And if there is a date of birth, in what numerical order is that written down, or is it actually fully spelled out in an international date format? An existing data set can be used as an inspiration to build out synthetic data, but it can also be that the original data remains in the synthetic data set and that it is only used to grow the data set. And that, of course, comes with different data protection questions as well as to the legal basis for creating the synthetic data, and also on the transparency to users and what happens if the original data is actually used for that further processing. There is some guidance from Data Protection Authority available already, but that's also not fully conclusive. There are guidance documents in the UK, in Singapore, and Korea, but there are also still a lot of open questions. At the same time, the use cases for synthetic data are, I think, massive, especially in the age of AI. For example, to increase the speed of research that we can do, think of healthcare, but also think of autonomous cars. Volkswagen was one of the participants in this panel, explaining that obviously they need real-life data and real-life scenarios to be able to build their software to let cars run autonomously. But to use synthetic data on top of that will actually help them to speed up the whole development process, meaning that we may have autonomous cars sooner rather than later. Another interesting panel dealt with agentic AI. And contrary to generative AI that we were introduced to, 2.5, 3 years ago, agentic AI is able to independently get data and then also take action following a basic initial prompt. Jules Polonetsky from the FBF made a comparison with booking travel. Not that long ago, we would go to a travel agency to organize our trips abroad. From flights to hotels to restaurants, they would take care of everything, and because they were the ones that had the knowledge. And then we started doing our own research and our own bookings using our personal computer, maybe our smartphone. But now, or soon, we can tell the AI agent on our phone or on the internet somewhere where we want to go, what we like, what we dislike, what we have seen before, what kind of trips we like, what the budget for our vacation or our business trip is. And then the AI is able to just sort it out for us, pick everything, make sure that everything is ready to go, and you don't have to do anything anymore. So it's a lot faster and a lot more convenient. I personally also think a lot less fun. I like preparing a trip myself and probably would not lead that to AI. This is, however, a fast development. And the whole panel warns that regulators will need to keep up to ensure that the legal and security angles are properly covered. Because right now, while it's all still under development, that is still possible. But if we're not careful, then a couple of months, if maybe a year or 2 years from now, we've missed that boat. So we need to act fast there. And that is not something that's easy. Dale Sunderland with the Irish DPC said at some point during the conference, also we as regulators are still figuring this out. And this meaning artificial intelligence and the interplay with data protection law and how it all technically works and what the requirements would be. And that's not surprising because the technology is for them as new as it is for us. The legislation, especially when you look at the EU AI Act, is also for them as new as it is to us. And also in one of the other panels that was confirmed, also by in-house DPOs, but also by other regulators, this is technically very challenging. Also because when do you believe the documentation that you receive from the AI providers? If they claim that their foundational model used a lot of data, but that the data was segregated in such a way that it could never be identifiable, do we believe them? Do we investigate? Are we able to investigate? Is that still possible? Or is that data already been processed and treated in such a way that the original data that was handed to the model to learn from is no longer in existence? That is a hard question to answer. And if we are not believing the AI providers on their blue eyes or on their brown eyes for that matter, then how do we push back? How do we get the evidence to say, oh no, what you're telling us is not really true and it is actually something else? I think that's a question that a lot of authorities are currently struggling with. And right in all, I do think this was quite an interesting and relevant open session of the Global Privacy Assembly. There's more to follow in the closed session in the next day and a half, of which obviously, because of the name, I will not be able to report in as much detail as on the open session. 2 little tidbits during the conference. OpenAI announced that they will make their privacy filter open source in the coming months. And the European Commission has announced that there is a new mutual adequacy decision that was completed between the European Union and the Korean Personal Information Protection Commission. Never a dull moment. So that's it from Seoul. Next year, the GPA will take place in Dubai. And rumor has it that the year after, the International Data Protection Community is expected in Nairobi, Kenya. Speak to you in a regular podcast next week. This is all for me. Back to the studio, back to Kay and Rob.
Thank you, Paul. That was excellent. Love hearing it. Hate that I couldn't be there this year, but I am looking forward to London in just a couple of months. So let's play some serious privacy trivia. Privacy trivia. That made sense, right? Let's go very simple. What does GDPR stand for? Boom, 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 boom. General Data Protection Regulation. More information on this. So the GDPR was passed in the European Union and it replaced Directive 95 that had been in place at 1995, where each member state or countries of the European Union could set their own privacy laws, data protection laws, but they had to meet a minimum level. GDPR took all that away because it was astronomically difficult for anyone to comply with all different laws. They basically chose the 1 or 2 of the countries they most did business with and complied with those. General Data Protection Regulation provided a standardization across the European Union. And when the United Kingdom exited from the European Union, they're still part of Europe, people, just not the European Union. They took the already adopted GDPR with them, transitioned it a little bit into more of a UK flavor, took out references to member states, things like that. So there you go. All right, another easy one. What U.S. state passed the first comprehensive consumer, we'd call that omnibus, privacy law? Bonus point if you know when they passed it. Okay, if you did not say the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, you were wrong. Okay, the answer to the question was what state? California. What's the law? California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA. It was amended by the Consumer Privacy Rights Act, CPRA, but the actual law is referred to as CCPA. We don't refer to it by the names that amended it, really. And when did they pass it? 2018, which is when GDPR, went into effect. Y'all are doing fabulous here. Okay, we're going to stay pretty easy, and then we're going to start getting a little bit more complicated, okay? Under GDPR, what is the maximum fine for non-compliance? Phone in question, has it ever been assessed? Answer is, y'all are getting used to me doing that now by right now. Okay. Up to 20 million euros or 4% of global annual turnover, whichever is higher. Not revenue in Europe or the UK, global revenue. And to my knowledge, that 4% has never been fully assessed. We started coming close to it on some of them now. Okay. We're going to go a little bit more complicated. What country privacy law is known by the, abbreviation? LGPD. And I would say, how do you pronounce it? But I probably cannot pronounce it right. Did you say Brazil? You said Brazil. It's wonderful. It was touted as the new GDPR for Latin America. It's not really, but it is a very comprehensive privacy law. LGPD is Lei Geral de Proteção de Dados. Someone in Brazil is going to tell me I was absolutely brutal on that and was ridiculous. Okay, so let's move on into a little bit more complicated. All right, what is the name of the EU-US construct that replaced the Privacy Shield in 2023? And what construct did the Privacy Shield replace? It is the EU-US Data Privacy Framework, but if you said thingy, you still get bonus points. You still get points for bonuses there for the thingy because it didn't have a name for a long time. And it replaced the Privacy Shield, and the Privacy Shield replaced the Safe Harbor. First two were overturned by Schrems decisions. And there was actually, as y'all know from listening to podcasts, a decision on the privacy framework and whether or not it was adequate or not. Okay. What privacy law around all the world, what privacy law specifically, and I believe uniquely, includes the concepts of data fiduciaries and data principles? I'll have to confirm that my answer is the only one that does this, but it's the only one I can think of. What's your answer? I'll give you a hint. It's the Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023, so DPDPA. India, yes, got it. Y'all are 10 for 10 here. Love it. Okay, let's see. What international privacy standard? So we're starting to get into a little bit of cybersecurity too, because this was built onto the security. What international privacy standard provides a framework for, quote, Privacy Information Management Systems, PIMS? Okay, hint, it's ISO, which is technically ISO, IEC, but ISO. Which are the numbers? 27701. Yes, 27001 are the information security ones. We go to 27701 when we're talking PIMS, which most of the controls basically just modifies a little bit of the language that's found in Appendix A or found in the 2700 series. Okay, let's see. I don't even know what number I'm on now. I'll have to check. We'll count them up at the end. Under the CCPA, What's the term for entities that determines the purposes and means of processing personal information? I'll give you a hint, it's not controller. Most of the other U.S. omnibus privacy laws do use the terms controller and processor, although they don't use them quite the same way the GDPR does. They provide the definition, but there doesn't seem to be a concept of joint controllers or anything like that. So anyway, back to the question. What's the term for entities under the CCPA that determine the purposes and means of processing personal information? Bing, bing. Business. Yes. And where do you find this in the CCPA? Is it anywhere under any of the sections or clauses that deal with processing personal information? No, it does not. It is found in the definitions. There we go. Okay. Here we go. Let's see. Let's go to this one, and then I'll do one last one, and I think that's 10. What's the name of the mechanism in GDPR and most other laws that allow data subjects to move their data between controllers? This one really shouldn't be that hard, right? It's the right of data portability, which, fun fact, I believe the conversation originated with shared data like books and music and things that people had downloaded to their services that they were using. Let's say they were using an e-reader or they were using a music service, and then they switched to another service and they had to go buy the books and the music all over again. So it originated with that. What it has come to mean in most privacy and data protection laws is the ability to export data in a commonly used machine-readable format, which is interesting. That does make it portable. You download to one, you upload to another, but you still can't do books and music. Do you know why you still can't do books and music? Intellectual property laws. So there we go. All right. So let's go. Okay, I'm going to ask 2 more questions because I lost track of how many I'm on. So let's go to what Canadian privacy law governs private sector organizations and includes provisions for cross-border data transfers. Say it because I've been told there is a correct pronunciation here, and then tell me what it stands for, which is always really fun to think about for some of these. I never can remember FERPA in the U.S., by the way. All right. Are we ready? Do we have it? The initials are PIPEDA. Now, if you called it PIPEDA, darn it, I'm taking points away from you because I have been told it is appropriately named PIPEDA. PIPA, long stockings. It's PIPEDA. So there we go. And it stands for the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act. So PIPEDA in Canada, Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act. Okay, the last question. I don't know if it's question 10 or if it's a bonus question. Tell me everything you know about privacy by design and what I'm looking for. When did it start? Who formally developed it? What role did that person have? And where has it gone since then? Let's talk about privacy by design. All right, when did it start? It originated not in this century. It originated in the mid-1990s. Does that not sound like the Victorian age, frankly, before the internet or anything? Right there. It was formally developed by Dr. Anne Cavoukian, who at the time was the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, Canada. So we have it. All right. So where we first saw it articulated was 1995 on a joint report on privacy-enhancing technologies by Dr. Cavoukian, the Dutch Data Protection Authority, and the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research. In 2009, the framework was formally published and presented at the Privacy by Design, the definitive workshop during the 31st International Conference of Data Protection and Privacy Commissioners. Is that the Global Privacy Assembly? Probably not if it has a name like that. There we go. In 2010, the International Assembly of Privacy Commissioners and Data Protection Authorities unanimously endorsed it as a global standard. So, how many did you get right? I don't even know how many I gave. I'll add them up before we publish it. So, you might have gotten 10 plus a bonus, or there may have only been 10, or good Lord, maybe I gave 12. But ding, let me know how well you did on that, because some of them were easy. Some of them were a little bit more sophisticated. Okay, let's keep digging into the privacy by design concept. the core principles of privacy by design is built on 7 foundational principles, and many people incorporate this into their privacy or data protection policy. Being proactive, not reactive. Being preventive, not remedial. Focus on privacy early. Privacy as the default setting. So start from privacy, and then anything that erodes privacy should not be done. Privacy embedded into the design, which means that people doing the design, not just the requirements, but actually the coding or whatever the design may be, the operational part of the design, they need to understand it as well, or they need to have a very good set of requirements that they need to follow. And as I've learned, a very good set of thou shalt nots, like the 10 commandments of privacy and data protection. Thou shalt not kill privacy. Thou shalt not envy anyone else's privacy because you're going to build it into your own privacy. Have all kinds of 10 commandments here. Okay, 10 of them, frankly. Full functionality, positive sum, not zero sum. Just because you have privacy or data protection built into the project, the thingy, the whatever you're doing, does not mean it takes away or adds to any other. You can do that and still innovate. You can do that and still have security. Security does not make up for privacy. So, positive sum, not zero sum. End-to-end security, full lifecycle protection from non-production environments for build and test and QA up to full production environments. You should have end-to-end security. And by the way, you should not have production data in a non-production environment. You should modify the data. You should redact data. You should replace data. Take out fields you don't need to test. But if you specifically do need to test, does a software work on all names? And so far you've only built it on Anglo-Saxon names, you might need to do a little bit of work to build it on Latin American names, Asian names, any names that have different letters and pronunciations and way of presenting than Anglo-Saxon. Let's be fair here, right? The world does not revolve around us. We're actually the minority around the world. But if you do have to do that, then you need to find a solution that will replace on a one-to-one factor. So it would still retain Latin American names. It would still retain Asian names, Chinese names, Malaysian names in the way that they are presented to make sure that they actually would work on production names. You can't replace it with a Sue and a Tom or a Bill, right? So you do need to have that. Okay. 6th foundational principle, visibility and transparency. Keep it open. This means being open and honest and transparent and visible about what you're doing. There are some things you might not be able to explain, like within AI, how the machine is actually learning. But you can explain the prompts, the data that goes into it, and how you train it to recognize a correct answer versus an incorrect answer, because there does have to be that training. And then 7th principle, respect for user privacy. Keep it user-centric. And this means as a company, you need to back away from your interest in doing this and think about the unique individual. And if you're regional based, you need to back out of your idea from Canada or from Brazil and think about what is the law in Australia or New Zealand or Greenland. You need to take that kind of approach because not every country defines sensitive data the same. Not all of them fulfill all of them the same. So there are some differences there. So those are the core principles of privacy by design, and it was adopted into GDPR in Article 25 as a legal requirement. But it has also influenced privacy legislation and frameworks globally, including Brazil, Canada, India, United States. So we all work on that. And so we do have a lot of more information on privacy by design and on those trivia questions. So hope y'all did well on the trivia questions. Y'all so much for joining us. And this is the end of the podcast. Hope you did well on the trivia. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.
That was Serious Privacy.
This wraps up our podcast for this week. Please do share the episode with your friends and colleagues because we love to get more listeners. And join the conversation on LinkedIn or on Blue Sky. You'll find us under Serious Privacy on both platforms. You'll find Kay as Heart of Privacy, Ralph as IGR O'Brien, and myself as Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data, and get credible, cited answers based on Nimity research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.